Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. Each week, we are serving up motivation and inspiration to help you get weeknight dinner on the table, letting you recapture a little calm in the crazy. And now, your host, speaker, author, and married mother of four, Mariefiebach.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. I'm your host, Mariefiebach, and this week we have a special replay episode for you. It's episode 24 from a couple of years ago, where I talked about doing a spring pantry and freezer clean out. I'm doing a replay episode this week because there's some work happening behind the scenes. Starting next week, we're going to do a little spruce up of the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. I'm going to be releasing my podcast now on Tuesdays rather than Fridays. I've talked with a couple of listeners and they have said that they would like to listen to the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast while they meal prep and empty out their groceries for the week, and that an earlier release in the week would be more effective for them. And I said, well, I can do that. The Feed Your Family Tonight podcast is getting a bit of a refresh. You'll notice a few little changes. Next week's episode is really raw and really vulnerable. I am going to talk a little bit about why Feed Your Family Tonight is so important to me and why I want to help you in the kitchen. So I hope that you'll tune in on Tuesday next week. One more little update about this week's episode is that I talk about Penzeys spices in the episode. I have bought spices from them, really happy with their spices, but I have started buying most of my spices from the Spice House. I've been really impressed, especially with their poultry seasoning. And so if you're looking for another resource of a place to buy incredible spices, the Spice House has been my go-to as of lately. So enjoy this replay episode. Dig into your pantry and freezer. Get those old winter foods out so you can have room for new spring and summer foods. And tune in next week on Tuesday for the refresh of the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. For now, friends, take care. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. I'm your host, Mariefiebach, and I am so happy to be spending a little bit of time with you today. Today, we are going to talk about spring cleaning our pantry and our freezer and getting ready for food in the warmer months that are coming. If you have heard me speak in person or have listened to episode 1, which is all about the master meal planning sheet, you have heard me say that the Feed Your Family Tonight master meal planning sheet is a living document. And if you don't have your copy, please go to feedyourfamilytonight.com/master. I'll link to it in the show notes and get your free copy. It is a very useful tool, and it's really important in this springtime when we are transitioning from winter food to warmer weather food. If you're listening to this in live time, it is April here in Kansas, and we are entering that spring sprint I talked about a couple podcasts ago, where life is getting really busy, but it's getting warmer outside, and you're starting to think about warm weather foods and spring foods. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see that I posted last week that we were having lettuce wraps. We have not had lettuce wraps since the summer last year, and it just felt so good to have some warm weather food because my brain automatically starts going to some of those lighter foods. The heavier foods of winter are kind of starting to go by the wayside, and I'm starting to bring out things that are on the grill. And we love to eat Lebanese food in the spring, and it kind of goes back to years ago. There's a Greek Orthodox church called St. Mary's, and a friend of mine belonged to that church. And they would have a spring food sale after their Easter, and they would sell all these amazing ethnic Lebanese foods. And there was kibbeh and hummus and tabbouleh and Greek salad and baklava and all these amazing foods. And we always think of those in the spring because of St. Mary's. And they still have that food sale. And I have learned how to make most of these special treats, but it's a special treat for our family. And I don't know about you, but I bet there are some foods that you're starting to think of now that spring is here, you're starting to think about warmer weather foods. So I have a few tips for helping you get ready for this transition time. The first thing is kind of going back to that master meal planning sheet. Look on there and see if there's some foods that you haven't had in a while. Or you may think of some things as this weather changes that you haven't even put on the master meal planning sheets. That is a real family favorite for this time of year. So make it. Make sure your family still likes it and then add it back to that master meal planning sheet. The lettuce wraps was one of those for our family. I haven't made them in a long time, and it was so nice to make them this weekend. They tasted good and it was fresh and light, and it was a nice break from some of the heavy winter foods. The next thing you want to do is you want to think about cleaning out your freezer and your pantry. Now, I have 2 freezers in my house, one that is attached to my refrigerator, and that one kind of keeps things that I use on a daily, weekly basis. I keep lunches for my husband in there because he doesn't like to have the same things 2 days in a row. So I kind of stock up lunches and he just pulls out one from last week or the week before so he can kind of have different foods for lunches. And I keep things like nuts and frozen fruit and frozen veggies, things that I use, but also in my upstairs freezer attached to my refrigerator, I keep little odds and ends of this and that, things where it was going to go bad, so I needed to put it in the freezer so that it would not be unsafe to eat. And now's the time to clean those out. And some of those little odds and ends you can use and eat up now. And some of those little odds and ends you may just want to toss. And I'm giving you permission to let go of the little odds and ends that you're not eating. And if your family isn't going to eat it or they don't like it, just let it go. Now's the time to get that freezer cleaned out and ready. Summer's almost here and you're going to want room for popsicles and those types of things. So clean out those little odds and ends. One little odd and end thing that I end up with often is little odds and ends of bread. And I like to turn those into croutons this time of year because salads are something that we have as the weather gets warmer. We eat a raw salad every night before dinner, but sometimes that salad becomes the entree. And so those little odds and ends of bread, I turn into croutons. The other thing you want to do with your freezer is eat up any wintry foods before it gets too late. And this pertains more to my deep freeze that I keep in the basement, where I keep my meat that I get from my farmer. And if I make things in bulk and I have them in the freezer, like my taco meat, or maybe I'll make up some chili or soup or stew, and I'll have that in the freezer ready to pull out for a quick meal. It's a really smart thing to do that. But now's the time to eat up those soups and stews and chili because you're not going to feel like eating a beef stew in the middle of June. So it's almost getting a little late now, but before it goes to waste in your freezer or sits there until the fall, now is the time to kind of clean out those heavy dishes. Even some of like the heavy pasta bakes and things. Most of the time in the summer, I don't feel like eating a big, thick, heavy red meat sauce pasta. I kind of like my pastas to be a little bit lighter in the summer. And so anything that's heavy and wintry, eat those out of your freezer now before it gets hot in the summer and you don't feel like eating them at all. Take a few minutes and clean out your freezer, toss the odd bits, or turn them into food that you're going to eat, like turning the bread into croutons and that type of thing. And then you want to move on to the pantry. And again, we cook differently in the summer and the spring than we do in the winter and fall. And there's ingredients that you use a lot in the winter and in the fall that you're not going to be using in the spring and the summer. Think about cleaning those out. I've told you before that I follow Lisa Woodruff with Organized 365, and her 100-day organization program is just magical. And I really love her stuff. And one thing she says to do when you're hitting your pantry is maybe you bought something thinking that your family was going to like it and you bought 2 or 3 packages of that particular item. and then you serve it to your family and they're not really fans. And so those packages of food that your family doesn't really like is kind of staring at you every time you get into your pantry. Take those out and donate them now. Get them out of your life. Free yourself of the guilt that you bought them. The money's already been spent and your family isn't going to eat it. And so letting it sit there until it expires isn't doing anyone any good. Get those out of your pantry now and donate them. Give them to a friend whose family might like them, or give them to a food pantry, but clean them out. All of the ingredients that you use to make some of your wintry foods, you want to use them up or clean them out of your pantry to make room for the summery foods. And in our house, we stop with the heavy soups and the stews and the pasta bakes, and we move more towards grilling. And we need supplies to make marinades for the grilled meat and toppings for some of the salads. So I stock up on dried fruit because we like to have like cranberries and that type of thing, or sunflower seeds and croutons. I like to get those things into my pantry during this transition time so I can be ready for some of the lighter foods that we like in the spring and summer. The other thing you want to think about is looking at your freezer. If you're like me and buy meat in bulk, what's your freezer looking like? And I looked at my freezer and it's getting to be grilling season. And every other week or so, my family really likes to have steak and we like to have grilled fajitas. And I can see that my freezer supply of those cuts of meats are kind of getting thin. And so I actually sent an email to my farmer, Andy Dale. I spoke with her on an earlier podcast, and I'll link to that episode if you want to learn about buying meat from a local farmer. So I sent her an email and I said, hey, are you going to be butchering soon? And she said, probably not until June. And I said, that's perfect. That gives me enough time to kind of clean out what I have right now and then put in an order from her in early June. So that's something that you want to think about is, do you need to stock up on your different things for your freezer as you enter a different season? What kind of things do you need in your freezer ready to go for easy meals during the week and during the spring and summer? You want to take a look at your spices. And I know we all keep our spices too long. I am as guilty of this as the next person. I remember one time I had a friend, this was years ago, and she had actually moved into her mother-in-law's house, and her mother-in-law had moved out into a different home and hadn't really kind of emptied everything out of her kitchen. And one night, some friends and I went over and we spent the evening with her, helping her clean out her kitchen. And we found spices that didn't have a UPC label on them. Well, when did UPC labels become like mandatory for any product sold in a grocery store? Somewhere in the 80s, right? So there were spices in her home that had been there since the 80s. And this was in the 2000s, right? This wasn't even in the 90s. This was in the 2000s when we did this. So look at your spices. See if any of them are getting old. The rule of thumb usually is that they'll last about a year, but open them up, smell them. If they still smell fresh enough and they still have some fragrance to them, then you can use them. And maybe if you think they're getting a little bit old, start finding some recipes to use up some of those spices. If you open them up and they're not fragrant, then maybe it's time to toss them and get fresh. Take an inventory of what you have and find out what you need to use up, what you need to order new of to get ready for the upcoming season. I always think in the summer, a lot of times that's when I bring out the cumin and the smoked paprika to give things that barbecue flavor. I order a lot of my spices from Penzeys. Penzeys, I'll link to them in the show notes. I am not an affiliate for them. I just happen to really like the quality and freshness of their spices. And oftentimes Penzeys will send you a free sample of a spice blend that they have when you do an order. So I have all of these different little mini jars of all of these free samples, and I'm really looking forward to using them on grilled chicken this summer because so many of them go well on just simple meats, and seeing which ones we like and which ones we don't prefer. And then I can use that the next time I order my spices. So finding out, using these samples up, and if we don't prefer them, pass them on to a friend who might like to try them. I'll often pass them on to my mom or my sister. They have different favorites. Their families kind of have different palates than our family sometimes, and there's things that they like and things that we don't prefer, and it kind of goes back and forth. Clean out your spices. If they don't smell fresh, get rid of them. If they smell okay and you think that they might be going towards their end, use them up. Now's the time to find some recipes to use them up. So that's another tip that you can do, kind of getting ready for spring, cleaning your pantry and getting ready for the warmer food. The other thing is looking at your appliances and gadgets and serving utensils and all that type of thing. What do you need more of? In the winter, our family eats a lot of grapefruit, and we had grapefruit spoons, and a few of them kind of broke and fell apart. And I kind of got through the winter this time, but when winter comes, I'm going to order some new grapefruit spoons. I don't really need them right now because grapefruit isn't in season in the summer, but I'll put a note in my calendar to order some grapefruit spoons in the fall so I can be ready. But what do you need in the spring? One thing that I found out that our family needed is we kind of needed to clean out our water bottles. I'm a big fan of having the same brand of water bottles with the same lids and making sure that all the straws match. And our water bottle drawer kind of started getting kind of random, and there were little bits and pieces of freebie water bottles that we got here and there. And I have cleaned out our water bottle drawer, and in my kids' Easter baskets, they're all getting a brand new water bottle to get ready for the summer. Because in the summer, anytime we get in the car, I always have my kids fill a water bottle and take it with them, even if we're just running errands, because someone's always going to get thirsty. And that way I'm not stopping to buy expensive bottles of water wherever we're at. I just always have my kids in the habit of bringing a water bottle with them. Are there some kitchen utensils or things that you need more of? What are your spatulas looking like? Are your grilling spatulas and grilling tongs in good shape? I have a couple of spatulas that I have melted on my stove and need to clean those out and toss those. But just kind of do a once over and see what you need. The next step is one that isn't necessarily fun to do, but I promise you when you do it, your eyes are going to open wide and think, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how bad it's gotten. And that is clean out your silverware drawer. I once watched Martha Stewart, and Martha Stewart, everything's prim and proper, and she recommends cleaning out your silver drawer monthly, which I wish I could say that I did, but I promise you I don't. She said, I don't know what it is. Even if you have the neatest, tidiest house, you will have crumbs in your silverware drawer. And sure enough, I went to my silverware drawer, and you pull out the silverware out of the dividers, and there are crumbs and all sorts of little pieces of stuff everywhere. And so I took out all my silverware, cleaned out all of the containers and the silverware dividers, and put it all back in. And that's something that you want to do this spring too, just kind of as a spring cleaning. Often in the spring, we have a natural energy to kind of purge a little bit, kind of get rid of the heavy winter things and bring out the lighter spring and summer things, and let that transfer to your freezer and your refrigerator and your pantry. Think about the type of foods you like to eat in the summer. Eat up the last of those heavy winter foods so they're not sitting in your freezer taunting you all summer long, making you feel guilty that you should have eaten them. Eat them now, and then do a little bit of batch cooking to get yourself ready for the summer. We tend to eat tacos year round, but I definitely will get some taco meat batch cooked and ready to go. We love these lettuce wraps that I make, and I will definitely get some of my lettuce wrap meat mixture cooked up and in baggies ready for quick dinners when life gets busy. And the other thing in the summer I like to do is I like to make up hamburger patties ahead of time. The full recipe for my hamburger patty system, and it really kind of is a system, is in my cookbook at feedyourfamilytonight.com. I make up probably 15 pounds of hamburger all at the same time. And I season the patties with my seasoning, and I lay them out individually on individual sheets of parchment paper and stack them up. And then I freeze them solid. And then I have them in stacks of just enough hamburgers for my family, which my family of 6, I usually make 8 to 10 burgers because my husband and son will often have 2 or eat one the next day. And having those hamburger patties in my freezer ready to go all summer long is so wonderful. I can take them out and put them straight on the grill frozen. And because they're separated by pieces of parchment paper, they don't stick together and they pop apart really easily. And that makes for quick and easy summer grilling recipes. So think about that. What kind of batch cooking do you need to do once you've cleaned out your freezer to be ready for some of the warmer foods of the spring and summer? So for now, friends, that's a little bit about the spring spruce that I do in my kitchen and pantry and freezer. I hope you take a few minutes to do just a few of those things to get yourself set up for success and kind of shed the heavy winter and move on to the lighter spring and summer. Clean out and get rid of those little odd bits of things. Any food that you bought that your family didn't really like, let go of it, share it with a friend, donate it to the food pantry, but get it out of your life so it doesn't just sit there taunting you until it expires. It's not doing anybody any good sitting there expiring. Share it with someone and let yourself be free of that so that you can have more room and more mental space for some of the lighter and fun foods of spring and summer. So for now, friends, thanks so much for joining me on the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. Can you do me a favor? If you appreciate this podcast, would you leave a rating or a review? If you are listening to this on your Apple Play app on your iPhone, you just scroll down to the bottom of the feed and it'll have a place for you to give a star rating. And then if you want to write a review, it is really how this podcast can grow. And that is how Apple ranks you, by what your ratings are and how many people have left reviews. So if you have a minute to do that, it would honor me so much and help me share the message of Feed Your Family Tonight. So thanks so much for joining us and enjoy your spring spruce. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Feed Your Family Tonight podcast with your host, Mariefiebach. If you like the show and want to know more, please visit feedyourfamilytonight.com. And if you'd like to help support the show, please leave a rating or review on iTunes or Apple Podcast. It helps spread the word that you can feed your family tonight.